So there I was, hanging out at my local arcade, just trying to earn enough tickets to buy my girlfriend something nice for her birthday, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a game that instantly captured my curiosity. A machine that up until a couple of weeks ago I had no idea even existed, which was a Halo arcade game of all things, called
Halo Fireteam Raven.
And I'll be honest with you guys, when I first saw this cabinet, I was blinded by its majesty, paralyzed, dumbstruck even, because this thing is huge. It's one of the largest arcade cabinets ever created, if I'm not mistaken. It's got two 65-inch screens connected to each other. This beast is 10 feet long. It's got 4 big UNSC railguns that are only a little bit sticky and smell like Old Jolly Ranchers. After marveling at this thing for a bit, I knew that I had to play it, because Halo was my childhood. It used to be one of my all-time favorite game franchises, until 343 came in and destroyed everything. Halo kickstarted this very channel. And you know, who doesn't love the occasional on-rails arcade shooter every now and again? These were a big part of my childhood too. I used to play these games with my mom back when I was 8 years old and she still had both of her eyes. These types of games can be pretty fun. So I put 20 bucks onto one of these cards, put on my glasses that have a 1080p hidden camera right in the center of them to record gameplay footage, slid my card, and started up the game. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I'm Ren with 2 N's, your favorite little boy in the whole wide world, and in Halo Fireteam Raven, you play as Fireteam Raven, a fire team of Ravens who are also ODSTs. The events of Fireteam Raven take place within this game, which is called Halo Fireteam Raven, which takes place during the events of Halo 1. The game starts you off on the Pillar of Autumn, you drop down onto the very first Halo, and do dumb little things in order to help Master Chief destroy the Halo in a much more fun game off-screen 16 years ago. The fact that it takes place during Halo 1 is a bit of an issue, but we'll circle back to that later. Because regardless of whether or not you're a Halo fan, this game is hot, hardcore trash. Pure filth down to its rotten core, for a multitude of reasons. In fact, I think that being a Halo fan makes this game even worse. But first, before I rip this atrocity apart, I'd like to talk about the game's good qualities. So number 1, I think it's pretty neat that if I'm on the far left side of the screen, that I can aim over at the far right side of the other screen and shoot at stuff over there. And it works perfectly. That's something I've never seen before. Number 2, the gun lights up real pretty when you shoot it, and it has some nice feedback to it when you pull the trigger. And that does it for the good qualities of this game, because everything else about Fireteam Raven is completely and utterly terrible. Throughout the entire game, enemies walk into your 25% portion of the screen, stand still, and shoot at you. You shoot back at them, they absorb a bunch of your shots, until they eventually fall over. And that's it. It couldn't be more boring. I mean, sure, the enemies will sidestep every now and then, which will cause you to miss a couple of shots while you correct your aim, and on somewhat rare occasions, the game will give you one grenade that will allow you to insta-kill an enemy, but for the most part, this is it. The enemies just stand there and shoot at you while you shoot back. And they don't flinch when you shoot them, the enemies don't react in any way, nothing. What you're seeing right now is what the entirety of the game's 40-minute runtime looks like. And throughout that 40 minutes, the game doesn't do anything to try and shake things up. Yeah, sure, the game gives you other weapons to use, like a plasma rifle, plasma pistol, magnum, shotgun, needler, rocket launcher, warthog turret, or even a shade turret. Because shade turrets were definitely in Halo 1, remember? But none of these weapons change up the gameplay at all. You'd think that maybe a specialized turret section would deliver something at least a little bit different, but they don't. All you do here is shoot at banshees or phantoms that appear on your 25% portion of the screen and either sit still or move very slowly. And even during these specialized segments, they still find some way to put regular enemies on screen that just stand still for you to let you shoot them. I am not kidding around with you guys. I am not being hyperbolic. This is literally what the entire game is. And if I weren't making a video on this, I would have quit playing it almost immediately. Because after 7 minutes of play, I was ready to blow my brains out. But some little kid broke the sensor on this particular gun, so I had to continue living. But hey, at least the Master Chief shows up a couple of times, which is pretty cool. Words cannot express how tedious this game is to play. It was pure hell. In Fireteam Raven, there's never any sense of urgency or pacing, like in the Walking Dead arcade game, where you're constantly getting swarmed by zombies. And as the zombies get closer and closer, you get more and more panicked because you're that much closer to taking damage. Their heads sway as they walk towards you, making them harder to hit, forcing you to focus on the game even more. And each zombie you kill feels good. When you land that perfect headshot, the gun vibrates and the zombie lights up as it ragdolls down to the floor. And if you miss their head and hit their body, they still flinch and react to each shot. The game also gives you power-ups every once in a while that make you feel truly powerful. It also gives you melee weapons, which have you playing the game somewhat differently for short periods of time. There's propane tanks you can shoot for some environmental kills. There are survivors you can save to gain health back so that you can get more bang for your buck. And in Fireteam Raven, the enemies just stand on your 25% portion of the screen and shoot at you. You know they actually made a making of video for Fireteam Raven? It's honestly kind of embarrassing how seriously they took this game.
And I think we get really literal when we think about games and, you know, how would you solve for an FPS in an arcade game? If you go to arcades, you'll find there really aren't a lot of traditional first-person shooters.
Oh, really?
Analyzing.
A good arcade game needs to have a good gimmick, like The Walking Dead, which has you using a crossbow to shoot at zombies, and you have to pull back on the lever on the crossbow when you want to reload. There's also a light on the ceiling of the cabinet, which turns on when your character walks outside, which enhances immersion. That Walking Dead machine is quality stuff. If you find yourself at an arcade, I'd absolutely recommend that you play this game. The Alien game is kinda cool too. You've gotta tap the bottom of the clip to reload your magazine. The best part about this is that you can get creative with your reloads. You can tap it with your leg. You can tap it with your head. You can have your cameraman tap it with his hand. You can have your cameraman tap it with his foot. You can pass the gun off to your cameraman, who will hold it still for you so that you can tap it with your foot. The possibilities are limitless, and this Alien game here is pretty fun. The Luigi's Mansion game gives you a weird vacuum gun for you to properly bust ghosts. Time Crisis gives you pedals to step on, to dip in and out of cover, and apart from having 2 giant screens and being an overall massive machine, Fireteam Raven gives you absolutely nothing. You just shoot the bad guys and you tap the reload button to reload. And it would be a different story if the game actually utilized both screens to do something interesting or unique, but it never does. Raven Squad does nothing to differentiate itself from the competition, which only enhances the boredom. And these arcade games typically don't take themselves very seriously, and they shouldn't. I mean, for Christ's sake, the Jurassic Park game has you shooting toilet seats so that you don't take damage. Okay. Wow. Shooting the toilet lids. That's so stupid and goofy. I love that. But Raven Squad has nothing. And there's so much dumb stuff you could do. Like, imagine if Sergeant Johnson got punched in the face by an elite and Johnson's cigar flies out of his mouth towards the camera and you gotta shoot the cigar out of the air before it hits you and does damage. What if we had a section where somebody tosses you a sniper rifle and you've gotta give supporting fire to a distant group of Marines by shooting hunters in the back and fighting sniper jackals that try to oppose you? What about a section where you put us in a scorpion tank that's being transported by a pelican? That could be a lot of fun. There's a lot you could do with that. Or what if for the big climax of the game, we got to pilot a scarab and shoot down other scarabs before going toe-to-toe with the Gravemind as the final boss. Like, get stupid with it, right? Give us crazy power fantasies like that, because this is just some dumb arcade game. It doesn't need to fit into the Halo lore, which, by the way, everything that happens in this game is apparently canon, I guess? Which was clearly a decision made by 343, and it doesn't benefit this game in any way. In fact, it hurts it a lot, and even goes as far as slightly retconning some of Halo's existing story. Hey, you remember that one time when you were at the end of the first mission in Halo 1, and before you hop into the escape pod, you save a fire team of 4 ODSTs? Well, you should remember that, because it happened.
You know, we put a lot of effort into capturing all the little details of Halo.
Oh, is that so? Little details like how you can't charge up the plasma pistol, or that you can reload a plasma rifle that never overheats? Little details like having a fully automatic shotgun that has the same exact crosshair as an assault rifle? Little details like putting this flood form from Halo 3 into this game, which takes place during Halo 1? And am I crazy, or does the background of this environment here look a lot like a Halo 3 mission? But apart from all that stuff and a bunch of other stuff I didn't want to mention for time, you guys knocked it out of the park. Fireteam Raven doesn't feel like an immersive Halo experience in the slightest. And I'm not asking for exact realism. In fact, I'm not asking for much, because when I was playing the Star Wars game that they had there, and I was doing the trench run in an X-Wing with the Star Wars music blasting into my eardrums far too loudly, damaging my hearing for life.
It's deafening!
What?
It's loud!
What?
It hurts!
For that 3-minute time span, I felt like I was in Star Wars. And I'm not even that big of a Star Wars fan, but it still felt really cool. It felt worth the $2 that it cost me to play it. But Fireteam Raven never has any moment like that. You never feel like you're part of the Halo universe. And that's partly because this game never takes advantage of the Halo license. You know, to be honest, I regret coming to this arcade. I regret wasting my time on this game. And I most definitely regret that I put $10 into this raggedy-ass machine! Hoorah! Here's a question that 343 never asked themselves, but probably should have. Why would a person leave their home that contains an Xbox One and the Master Chief Collection, to play an on-rails, cheap, watered-down version of Halo? Especially when they have all the classics right at their fingertips. The very concept is downright comical to me. Because when you get right down to it, a first-person arcade game of Halo really just doesn't make any sense.
We have been talking about a Halo arcade game for years. Actually, the seed of that conversation is a Halo pinball machine, which we still haven't made.
Now, a pinball machine, on the other hand, makes a lot of sense, because it doesn't take away from any of the core values that Halo has. Since it's just a pinball machine, there's no expectations for it. It doesn't have to do anything but be a functioning pinball machine. But when you have Halo be first person, it comes with certain expectations. And when you force Halo to be on rails and take away everything that makes Halo Halo, like the movement, enemy AI, weapon variety, all that stuff you know and love, the classic 30 seconds of fun, you get a miserable, uncreative, lazy shell of a game. Whoever came up with the brilliant idea of putting an entire Halo game on rails might just be an actual idiot. If you live in an area where this game isn't available, you're doing okay. Because the only reason you might want to play Fireteam Raven is if all the other arcade games in the building are currently being used.
Basically imagine the width of 4 players sitting on a couch, and that's the cabinet with a giant screen that's right there. It's a really visceral experience.
Not only is Fireteam Raven undebatably the worst Halo game in existence, but it's also quite possibly the worst on-rails shooter I have ever played. And yes, I am including those dumb little mobile games like Spartan Assault, because at the end of the day, those games cost like what, 10, 20 bucks? And had a few hours of relatively average twin-stick shooter gameplay. There's some value to them, whereas with Fireteam Raven, I had to leave my house, drive to a disease-ridden arcade, and the game is only 40 minutes long at best. It looks incredibly cheap and feels rushed. This, to me, is just more proof that 343 don't really know what they're doing with the Halo license. They lost me as a fan 7 years ago when they launched Halo 4. Ever since they've been in charge, they've done nothing but make terrible decisions time and time again. And yeah, I know that 343 didn't develop this game, but they came up with its inception. They came to Raw Thrills and Play Mechanics, the very studios that developed most of the other games that I mentioned in this video, you know, the good ones. And 343 oversaw this product as Play Mechanics were creating it. And I'm not so sure that 343 can ever win me back. The fact that it's been 3 years since Halo 5 came out, and all we've seen of Halo Infinite is a teaser trailer that doesn't even contain actual gameplay footage, is a huge red flag to me. It makes me think that that game is in development hell. But this year's E3 will have something more, so I'm willing to wait and see. But I'd love to be wrong and have Halo Infinite be a good Halo game. But 343 has yet to make one of those. Not even close. Anyway, I kinda got off topic there, but I'd like to give a big shout out to my brother Kenzie for coming along to film this monstrosity of a video game with me, and this video wouldn't have been possible without my patrons, whose money allowed me to get out there and pay for the game. So if you would consider becoming a patron, that would be wonderful, as I don't really make much off of my channel right now due to how small it is, and these videos take a lot of effort to make. And I just recently revamped my Patreon, so once I hit $100 per month, I'm gonna start doing a monthly video series where I get incredibly drunk and react to my old content, which is all pretty juicy stuff. And once I run out of my own old content, I'll watch videos that my Patreons recommend for me, which should be a lot of fun, because people love it when I get drunk. But that's all I got for this video, and thank you so much for watching. Making this video was a total blast. It was fun to do something a little bit different, and if you enjoyed this video at all in any way, please leave a like and maybe consider sharing it as well, because I don't think this video is going to get very many views. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Damn. I tell ya, that feels way better than Halo.
I'm the best kid in this fucking building.